I am God the God Butcher. All gods will die, and I will destroy everyone who comes in my way. Everybody comes in. Who are you? I'm Batman. Who? I'm Batman. I'm here to kill you. I can't understand what you're saying. I say that I'm Batman. I swear to God, I am not getting a word. You swear to me.
Are you guys still watching after that intro? You are? Great. Thor Love and Thunder was directed by Taika Waititi and is kind of a significant movie in the MCU. This is the first time that a solo fourth movie has existed for a character. When you asked me years ago, when anyone would ask me years ago what I would expect to be the first fourth movie for which character, I would have said Iron Man or Spider-Man. But we're getting Thor. And Thor has had such an interesting arc in these movies ever since Ragnarok especially. It's been really fun to see. And I loved Ragnarok. So naturally going into this one, there was a lot of anticipation and hype. Taking place after the events of Avengers Endgame, Thor is with the Guardians of the Galaxy and they're going off on their own adventures. However, Thor is trying to step away from the heroism for a little bit, try to essentially find his way in life again. Eventually, Gorr the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale, shows up on the scene to butcher gods. And so Thor has to come out of this self-imposed retirement. But this time he's not alone. He's got a bunch of allies, including his ex-girlfriend, Jane Foster, played once again by Natalie Portman, who has the power of Thor, and Mjolnir. Like I said, I was excited to see this movie. There is no sugarcoating it. I was pumped out of my mind. And so I showed up for the screening. I was ready, locked in, and I will say, I'll cut right to the chase. I enjoyed it. I did. Not quite as much as Ragnarok, though. I think this is a very entertaining movie in its own regard, however, and a lot of that has to do with Waititi's energetic direction and writing once again. It's not flawless by any means. There's definitely some overstuffage going on in this. There's so much they're cramming into this weirdly shorter 1 hour 59-minute runtime, which feels short for this movie because I feel like there's about 10-15 minutes more that they wanted to do, but they did not end up doing. And I'm kind of curious as to whether there'll be some kind of deleted scenes like packaged down the line on the Blu-ray. It would not surprise me because there are definitely things that this movie could have developed on a little bit more. It definitely tries a little too much to reach for a lot of different emotional and tonal successes, but it doesn't quite reach all of them. It tries really, really much, and I appreciate the reach, but some things do come off a bit shortchanged in comparison to other things. There are moments, though, where the emotional beats and the more heartfelt beats land perfectly. When those land, this movie is fantastic. When they don't land, it's not quite as much. And so I overall end up on the I enjoyed it, but not quite as much scale. Also, I do think that this movie can sometimes have tonal issues. It's just kind of weird because Ragnarok, I thought, handled the humor stuff along with the more dark, tragic stuff fairly nicely. The jokes in Ragnarok landed a lot better than they do in this movie. I didn't quite find it as funny, and even the jokes that are there, they're not the best. There's some chuckle-worthy things here and there. There's two goats that are really, really funny throughout, but aside from that, I had a really good time with this movie. Let's start off with some of the best stuff. Let's start with the person who everyone's gonna obviously talk about, and that is Natalie Portman. I think Jane Foster is one of the most wasted characters in the MCU until now, because I thought with an actor like Natalie Portman, the potential to do something great with the character is limitless. And keep in mind, Jane, this is a character who can do a lot of stuff. And Natalie Portman was coming off of an Oscar win right when the first Thor came out. And it didn't really do anything. And I always thought that was such a wasted opportunity, especially with someone of that caliber. Now Love and Thunder exists to basically rectify those wrongs, and she's fantastic in it. And she really has so much fun playing this version of Thor. Like every single second on screen, she is absolutely chewing the scenery, and well deserved, honestly. Speaking of chewing the scenery, though, Christian Bale as Gorr is one of the best MCU villains by far for me. I think he's fantastic and incredibly terrifying. Like, this guy shows up and it's very menacing to see him on screen. Every moment with him is this icky, dark feeling, this sort of pit you get in your stomach whenever you see him, and he's outstanding. He's not in the movie as much as I thought he would be, though. He's definitely limited to some scenes, and so he'll show up at one point, and then there'll be a long time when he doesn't show up, and then he'll show up again. And so there are definitely points where you'll find like he's not in the movie at all. But they try to do something with him, which is like, hey, if we limit his screen time in some places, his impact feels greater. I guess that's the strategy, sort of like a Hannibal Lecter thing. And I think it worked. I think he's genuinely terrific in this. As always, Chris Hemsworth is great as Thor. Honestly, this is one of those born for those roles kind of things, and he is absolutely fantastic in this. They do play up Thor to be a little silly at times, but then they've been doing that since Ragnarok, and that's fine. It sort of goes with the tendency of the comic books as well. Like, there is an over-the-top nature to them. You expect that to come in comic books. So I'm totally okay with some of the sillier stuff that he says, and it takes a while for him to find his groove back, so naturally the sillier stuff feels a little more enhanced at times. But as the movie progresses, that also sort of dissipates, and so it's all part of the growth, I suppose. Michael Giacchino's score is also pretty fun. This man is getting work left and right. I mean, he has had no rest. Michael Giacchino just dropped Lightyear 2 weeks ago, and now he's doing this. I mean, the guy is really, really working, like, no rest. The hustle is real, and I respect it. I definitely do. They also use some pretty fun needle drops. There's one that you heard in the trailer, and yes, it's in the movie. Visually also, the film is very interesting. There are some things they do with gore that I thought were particularly fascinating, especially in one sequence where they have to fight him was really, really cool. They do this black and white thing, and I thought that was very creative. There are some things that they've used a little too much on. Like, there were a couple of shots where you can definitely tell, like, that's CGI. That they've used the volume, the new system that Disney's been using for a lot of their projects, and also they used on the Batman. And yeah, that's effective up to a point. Like, anything you overuse it or you try to be a little too much with it, it gets a little crazy. So there's a few shots that definitely didn't work, but in a theater space, some of those shots didn't really look so bad. Like, I guess it also comes down to where you're watching it. But the movie is really about love and, well, thunder, but mostly love, because this chronicles the romance that Thor and Jane had, how the breakup happened, and then now they're reconciling over what's going on. There are other reasons, of course, which obviously I'm not going to go into because spoilers, but the relationship that they build up over here felt like it was out of an 80s rom-com. And I actually mean that as a compliment. Like, there's a moment in here which legit feels like it's pulled from, like, a sitcom show, like, in the 80s or 90s. And I actually think that worked, because it feels like this, like, Marvel's take on a romance. I'm not sure it's gonna work for everybody, but I was having some fun with that. Like, when they went into those things, I thought, yeah, that's cute. I mean, it's not something that I've seen before in the MCU, them try to do something like this, but I guess if you had to do something with Taika Waititi handling romance, you're gonna go a little crazy and over the top. And that's the thing about this movie. So much of it is Waititi's crazy manic energy. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're on the wavelength, then you're going to enjoy a lot of things about this movie. Like I said, it's not flawless by any means. There are definitely issues with it, and I've addressed those. I think it's way too overstuffed at points. I think the first half takes a while to figure itself out, and like I said with Thor figuring out how to be a hero again, the movie's trying to figure out how to be a movie. So there's a lot of tonal inconsistencies here and there. Some plot points that are kind of glossed over and not given as much depth as I hoped they would be. And I thought that was a missed opportunity as well. Like I said, it owes to the shorter runtime, which I feel like this should have been a few more minutes. But overall, did I walk out of Thor Love and Thunder very satisfied? Yes. I was actually surprisingly moved at times. There's a few moments that are really quite bittersweet. It's not always the yeah, awesome cheering movie. There are moments where you do feel like there's this heart to it, and it definitely tugs on those strings more often than not. When it does that, this movie honestly goes for some of the best stuff in the MCU. There's some scenes in particular that are fantastic, like all-time emotional moments. But I think they could have done a little more with that. That being said, am I excited to see it again? Absolutely. I am looking forward to seeing it again. I'm looking forward to seeing it again with a packed crowd. This was a very energetic one that I had. People were having a great time. And naturally, I think at the end of the day, if you're enjoying the movie, if you're enjoying what you're seeing on screen, like, that's a pretty big victory in itself. And there's also 2 end-credit scenes I should mention, which are really exciting. They set up some things which are interesting. Like, I'm curious to see where they go with those things down the line. I'm going to give Thor Love and Thunder an 8 out of 10. I'm pretty satisfied with this movie overall. Like I said, not one of my favorites in the MCU. Definitely not like top 10 like or anything like that. But as of right now. But we'll see what happens in due course of time. Maybe it will actually get there eventually. And I'm curious to what you guys think when it eventually does release in theaters. It's out in some places, I think Thursday, Friday, so, eventually worldwide. And so I'm curious to what those thoughts are going to be. Critics seem to be all over the place a little bit with this one. I guess I'm on the positive leaning side. What can I say? Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.